Hello, I hope you're well. Today I wanted to talk about a few TV shows and movies that I've been watching recently that all happen to have females as the central characters. So I recently went on a trip to Sydney and Melbourne. As a result, I got to watch a lot of in-flight movies, and the couple of films that I got to watch actually haven't been released in Australia yet, which was really cool. So the film that I watched on the flight from Perth to Sydney was called 20th Century Women. This is a film from director Mike Mills, who people might know from the film Beginners. He also writes his films as well. So Beginners was about his dad, and this film 20th Century Women is about his mum. It's set in the 1970s, and it is about a boy called Jamie and three women in his life. His mum, played by Annette Bening, a lady played by Greta Gerwig, who rents a room in their house, and his best friend, played by Elle Fanning. His mum is worried that he doesn't have a dad or a man in his life to teach him how to be a good man when he grows up, so she enlists the help of Elle Fanning and Greta Gerwig's characters to try and bring him up so that he'll turn into a good and respectful man, unlike many of the men that have been in her life. The film doesn't have a strong plot. It's mostly about the characters and how they interact with each other, and it's really interesting to see the different things that each female thinks are important to teach Jamie. So Greta Gerwig's character teaches him about feminism and about punk music. Elle Fanning kind of teaches him about freedom of sexual expression for women, and his mum of course teaches him everything else. I thought it was really well acted, had a great soundtrack, being set in the 70s, and it was really beautifully directed as well. The shots were all beautiful, and all the colours and the settings involved in the film were really nice to look at. The second film I got to watch, which was on the flight from Melbourne back to Perth, was Miss Sloane. This stars Jessica Chastain as a lobbyist. She's one of the best lobbyists in the business, and she works for a very high up company until they want her to lobby in favour of the gun industry in America. So she decides to switch to a smaller, more progressive lobbyist company, and they decide to lobby for a bill that will bring in more gun control and ensure people who want to buy guns in America have to get background checks. This is a very sort of wordy political drama, but the performances make it incredibly engaging. So even though I probably didn't quite understand everything that was being said, Jessica Chastain's performance as this really hard-hitting, work-driven character really propels the film forward. It was really great to see a female protagonist who is not necessarily likable. In fact, she does a lot of things that are really reprehensible and things that we might not agree with, but you can always see her reasoning behind what she's doing, and it's so important for women of all kinds to be portrayed on screen, including the unlikable ones. It's also a really fascinating look at the lobbyist industry, which I knew nothing about before watching this film. The in-flight entertainment also included Big Little Lies, so I got through 4 episodes of that on my various flights, and then finished it off once I got home. The show seems to be advertised as like rich white women being catty to each other and just fighting about their kids in school and stuff like that. But what the story is actually about is women surviving abuse and actually in the end coming together to protect each other. The story starts off with, we know that someone has been murdered at the school trivia night. We don't know who's been murdered, and we don't know who the murderer is. And so then the show tracks back a few months, and so we see all the lead up to that trivia night, which then unfolds in the very last episode. The show also intercuts police interviews with other parents from the trivia night and the school, talking about their opinion of the main characters. And the way they cut it together was fascinating to see how what the other people in the town thought of these main characters was totally the opposite of how they actually are, and it was a great way of representing the stereotypes that women often get for being protective of their children or for being successful in their careers, and contrasted those stereotypes with how they actually are and the reasons behind why they behave the way they do. The performances are also great, and then the cinematography again in this was beautiful. I'd be really interested to read the book because the book is actually from an Australian author and is set in, I'm pretty sure it's set somewhere in Sydney or outside of Sydney. So I'm really curious to read the book and see how the story is like in an Australian context. Another show my sister and I started watching is the Anne of Green Gables adaptation on Netflix, which is entitled Anne with an E. So this adaptation has taken the story of Anne of Green Gables and delved so much deeper into the characters. So it looks way more at Anne's backstory. It really examines the trauma that she's been through, being an orphan and being shipped out to different sort of poor families to help look after their multitudes of children. It really emphasizes her desperation when she realizes that Marilla and Matthew don't want her because they wanted a boy. It has definitely changed a few things as well. For example, when she goes to school, the children at first are kind of suspicious of her, and there's a general feeling in the town that she is not of worthy blood because she doesn't have a family and they don't know her background. And in the book, she's just totally accepted into the town and into the school. And I think the adaptation's version of it makes more sense. I feel like people would probably think that way back in the 1900s. Normally I'm one for adaptations sticking pretty close to the book, but I think in this case the adaptation has really enhanced the story. It's really just helped to make sense of the story and of the characters for a modern audience. I absolutely love the girl who's playing Anne. I think she's perfectly cast, and she's actually Irish, so her accent is incredible. I really love the casting of Marilla and Matthew as well, and I love that they've given Matthew way more lines and way more stuff to do than he got in the book. And I love that they've just taken random characters and given them a bit more of a story. For example, the French boy that they hire to help Matthew out when they decide to keep Anne, he's suddenly given a name and lines and this whole backstory to him, and it's really cool that the writers have just sort of read through the book and picked out characters and thought, okay, what would actually be their story if the author had decided to tell it. The last show that I've been watching is the adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale. Again, this has taken the basic story of the book and really enhanced it and gone further with it, and I really like that as well, because The Handmaid's Tale is such a sort of condensed, and it's a very metaphorical book as well, so you don't really read it for the plot as such. Almost the whole of the book is told in the first episode, and then they've just further explained more of the backstory behind the dystopian world. Again, further enhanced on characters and given them more backstory. I love how the look of the series is exactly how I imagined the book. Like, even down to sort of the colour palette of the house is just how I imagined it when reading the book, which kind of shows the power of Margaret Atwood's writing. And I think the casting as well is so good. And I love how Elizabeth Moss isn't dressed up to look beautiful, like she just looks like a normal person, and I think that's so important in TV these days because everyone seems to be so attractive all the time, to have these real looking people getting to tell their story. I'm only 3 episodes into this, so I'm very excited to watch more and see where they take the story. And Tale was always one of those stories where you just wanted to find out more, and the book never actually gave you enough, so I'm really excited that the story has an opportunity to expand. And let me know if you've seen any of these below and your opinions on them, and please let me know if you have any recommendations for other female-led films or TV shows that you think I should watch. I hope you have a lovely day.